Well Studios. Joining us now, Cheryl Chumley, online opinion editor from the Washington Times, host of the Bold and Blunt National podcast. Cheryl, thanks for coming on the program.
It's great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So you recently published a book entitled Lockdown. Tell us about that.
So Lockdown, the Socialist Plan to Take Away Your Freedom, it's out officially May 3rd. You can pre-order it now wherever books are. But it's sort of the follow-up to my most recent last book. That one was called Socialists Don't Sleep. Christians Must Rise or America Will Fall. And in Lockdown, I take a look back at the biggest lies and deceptions we were told by government over the last coronavirus couple of years. But I also look ahead where this is all leading. And hopefully Americans who read this will take a big red flag warning moment to fight off some of these individual liberties that we are on target to lose if Democrats, if socialists, if globalists and collectivists have their way.
Yeah, so let's start with something that's been a high profile in the news cycle the last couple of days, and this appointment and establishment of a governing body under the Department of Homeland Security with to look for disinformation. We've got this disinformation czar, Ms. Jankowicz. We've been talking about her this morning, who clearly is a left-wing ideologue who's going to be in charge of this body. This is Orwellian. This is scary.
Yeah, it is. It's a Ministry of Truth, which any 1984 readers, George Orwell's dystopian novel or novel about dystopian society know is really the Ministry of Untruths, the Ministry of Lies. And this is what we're going to have under this, Joe Biden administration appointment. And look, if the left continues to control the speech of Americans, honestly, is it liberal speech that's going to be stifled? No, it's conservative speech. It's Christian speech. It's Bible speech. It's speech that Americans normally would be freely allowed to speak. But this new czar-type crackdown on individual liberties on the First Amendment that's coming our way is not just going to have ramifications for the next election. It's going to chill speech going forward. And again, it's another example of the left moving the goalpost from one of the Democrat Party to socialism to communism. This is something that you would see more in China, certainly not in America.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds, from a digital perspective, of the Great Firewall that essentially isolates China from the broad internet, where the government controls the content that is allowed inside the country. I sort of feel like this is almost headed in that direction. We've already kind of had some degree of that with these left-wing social media platforms that I think have discriminated against the speech and emanating from conservatives with which they disagree.
Absolutely. And look, you can make the case that social media companies are private companies and they're allowed to publish what they want and speech that they deem appropriate versus inappropriate. I happen to disagree with that now, though I was slow to come to that realization because they're afforded special interest from government in order to keep their platforms open to everybody. Yep. And, what's happened, though, is if you go back even farther in time, there was a time in America where we were talking about hate speech, and that was something that early on, if we had fought the notion of hate speech being a real thing, we may not be where we are right now with this classification of speech as disinformation or misinformation. Because really in this country, founding fathers didn't carve out exemptions in the First Amendment for hate speech or violent speech or misinformation or disinformation. In America, it's all free speech. You can call something disinformation, all you want, but you have the right to say it. And the idea that now the government is going to step in and rubber stamp and approve what is truthful speech versus false speech, that's chilling, because the next step, of course, is to regulate, and that's where we lose our freedoms.
Yeah, I've even seen, you probably have as well, Cheryl, that there are reports coming out of the European Union, the EU, that they may think twice about allowing Twitter to be available in the EU once Elon Musk takes over.
Yeah, chaos is going to result here. It really is not brain surgery to understand that free speech should go both ways, right? Yeah. And if you're in the Democrat Party right now, cheering the idea of stifling conservative speech, you don't have to be that intelligent to see that one day the roles, sure, the people in charge may reverse, and it could be conservatives who actually want to stifle liberal speech. I can't really see that happening, but that's such a short-sighted approach to warding off opposition to your policies, your agendas, your viewpoints.
And when you start talking about the concept of prohibiting so-called hate speech, and you did a great job of articulating how the founders felt about that, the next thing you know, using the wrong pronouns is considered hate speech, right? So what's the standard for that?
Well, there is none, and we've already seen some talk about hate speech or some label biblically based speech or biblically advanced viewpoints as hate speech. So not only are we in danger with this new messaging, this new narrative from the Democrat Party, not only are we in danger of losing our freedom of speech, but right on the heels, right on the cusp, is freedom of religion, freedom to worship freely, freedom to evangelize if we so choose.
It makes me wonder, Cheryl, what is the left afraid of? Are they afraid that their own ideas, that their own philosophy, that their own views cannot be supported, that have no merit? Therefore, they've got to squash counter views? Yes.
I mean, in a word, yes. Right? Because if you look at what the left advances, what the Democrat Party of today advances, which is so different from even the Democrat Party of Bill Clinton days. Yeah. But if you look at what the left advances, it's all lies and deception, because if they were truthful about their end game, they would have to come out and say that they basically want to control from the very top levels of government, meaning global government, all individual thought, freedoms, ability to assemble and travel, ability to earn for one's own family, the school system, the ability to worship freely. The left ultimately has an end game of controlling all aspects of human life. And if they were to come forward and say that openly, the backlash would be tremendous, that they would be shut out of the political system for decades to come.
So we've got to tell you, it's for your own good. That's the message we get. It's our compassion for you is why we're doing this, to protect you. The other thing that bothers me on this matter is it feels like that those parties who should be the most fierce advocates of free speech, the press, politicians, and our institutions of higher learning, yet they seem to be the ones that are squawking the most about this.
Yeah, because they've been corrupted by their corporate overlords, right? Most in the media now, they work for big corporations. And these are the same type of corporations that have signed on to the Great Reset that's put forth by the World Economic Forum, which cripples capitalism and steals individual freedoms, and the Build Back Better agenda, which is the same as the Great Reset that Joe Biden put forth and everything. So these are the same corporations that are going woke in America, and they do this because they think they are going to be one of the elite few at the top when the dust settles.
Yeah. So what do you think, got a couple of minutes left, what do you think about the midterms coming up? I mean, prognosticators are saying that there's going to be a huge increase in seats swayed in favor of the Republicans, certainly in the House side. What do you think?
Well, fair elections, Republicans win by a large margin in both the House and Senate, hands down.
Yeah.
And I see the same for the presidential election in 2024.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. As old Larry Kudlow likes to say on the Business Channel, the cavalry is coming, and, man, we need some relief big time because this is going in the wrong direction. Cheryl, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Middays, we'll step aside for a break right here. Stay with us. We'll be right back.